Good evening. Alright, what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to try to make this an Unreal. So we're going to try to do the same thing that we did before. Which is we're going to go through and attempt to kind of deconstruct this thing from a point perspective, like what actual elements we're going to need to make the scene properly. And then we're going to try to get a rough version of every single one of those things in the scene. And then we're going to mess with it until it looks better than bad. And I'm still just kind of waking up here, which it's always good to wake up at 9:30 in the evening. It's a sign of a healthy and stable sleep schedule. So this was the level that we made last time. And while this does not have a good frame rate in the editor, that's because a lot of the effects are all like very high quality. And when you run this in release mode, it runs rock solid, everything like that. The editor just, well, can't really take ridiculous stuff like this at all times. So what we need to do is we make a new level. So we're going to duplicate our visual tests. We're going to call it why don't we make this one off as a new one? Let's call this Sunset over Waterfall. And we'll save that and all that. Let's make sure we've got a good thumbnail for it. Alright, so we've saved that. I'm also going to want to build this level, make sure it's all built up properly. And if you want to see this in release mode, it looks like this. Oh no, that's the old one. Well, this was a very long time ago. Oh, I never installed the new one, I just ran it from the release folder. Alright. We'll do that never then. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so what we want to do basically is we want to clone this empty void level. And we want to make this new map. This new map is going to be the, I guess, grasslands at night. because I'm going to be taking this picture, deconstructing it, and we're going to put that into Unreal. And solve our problems. Like a lot of the problems last time that we solved reflections, we solved a lot of the lighting stuff, we figured out how to do God rays and all that sort of crap. We kind of also figured out that, okay, 3D assets work quite well in these situations. What this sort of stuff we'll have to do for, you know, moss on rocks. And for this one, it's going to be a lot more different lighting. Like, how are we going to get these circles around the moon? And of course, we'll start with our completely empty level, which has a single directional light and a player. And this is our void. This is the nothing that we'll have to create. Let's make sure it's all built up, everything else. And then we'll set our startup level to this in case we have to do any real changes. Alright, so editor startup should be grasslands at night. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to deconstruct this picture and pull out the pieces that we're going to need to make. I'll go ahead and save a couple of these notes. Thank you for following, Calvin. Welcome. We're going to be trying to deconstruct this visually. Like, I'm not an artist, I'm an engineer, so don't expect me to know any proper terms or be able to do anything. Basically, my job is to deconstruct this stuff and figure out how we're going to make it in the engine, hopefully. So, from the perspective of not an artist, we will be deconstructing a piece made by an actual artist. And hopefully that's interesting and entertaining, and if it's not, well damn. I'm just saving some of these notes. I have to organize stuff a little bit. That's why, yeah, that's why we have Adam on the team. That is definitely true. Alright, so let's take a look. Kind of how we broke this down last time is we started with the background and then we came into the foreground. And then we wrote down ideas and things that struck us. Alright, so let's start in the far background. I guess you can't really get farther in the far background than there are stars. Let's see, is there anything about the stars that we want to experiment with? Stars have different colors / intensities. Should stars change in what we call luminosity? Let's see. There is a moon. Let's see. How exactly is this moon constructed? Well, we've got a blue circle, I guess. I mean, that's not how a moon looks. You know, like, It's like a Sailor Moon moon. Like, you know, a circle, and then we have a circle inside of it, like, taken out as if somebody special beam cannoned half of it away. So what we're going to have to do is... question would be, should it be a realistic moon for what we got working with, or should we just try to go for a stylistic sort of moon? Alright, so the moon is a circle fronted with a moon image. Let's see, we have soft glow around the moon. We have concentric circles coming off. You know, we've got these, you know, circles coming off of it. And it looks like it's facing the camera. And that's one of the things, like when I was growing up one time, going over the Columbia River, there's this, yeah, it's a pretty bloomy moon. We're going over the Columbia River in Washington State, and at the top of this, the Columbia River is this huge river, and it cuts through this kind of canyony area, and there's this one big bridge across it going east to west. You know, all the major highway converges into this one bridge, and overlooking the bridge, way up on the cliff, is this, you know, wild horses monument. These big metal horses that are up on top of it, overlooking it. And I live in Western Washington, excellent. Yeah, and one of the things is my brother and I were driving at like 2 in the morning or something like that over this, and it was a, you know, a clear night. We're teenagers and everything, so of course we're like, let's go visit the horses, you know, because that's completely legal. But so we got out there and we actually ran up to the top of the cliff in the middle of the night, jumped a few fences to get there, and we could see everything perfectly because there's this beautiful full moon that just, you could see everything perfectly. And when you looked up into the sky, it just looked like, you know, a god's eye staring down at you. There's just these circles of clouds around the moon, and I'll never forget it, and this very much reminds me of that. So we're going to try to get that sort of effect. So let's see, what else are we looking at? We've got kind of this wispy cloud layer coming through. So let's see, the wispy clouds. It looks like there's wind blowing or something else. It's kind of moving this slowly across. It looks like it's... So they're slowly moving or something like that. They're not really regular. They're kind of blah. One thing also about this that's pretty clear is the shot is... I can't really tell if the shot is fisheye or if we're looking at kind of this grasslands, rolling hills right here. And I think it's kind of a fisheye effect. Like, if we were gonna like try to fix this, we would need to like kind of correct it. So we'll see. The entire scene appears to be slightly fisheye. So the question would be, can we replicate the... Yeah, it's bending. So the question would be, can we replicate this effect? And then, if so, how does that affect our gameplay? So the thing is, if we wanted to have a level or something like that where we do bend the camera or do some crazy shenaniganry with the background, is that going to make the level just unplayable? If it makes the level playable, is it still playable if we have complicated platforming segments, or if this effect looks quite good, we could just have some of these levels that don't have that many technical platforming sections and are more kind of experiences, which there's plenty of storytelling parts of the game that just have an experience. Or not have, you know, crazy, ridiculous platforming segments where you have to see everything perfectly to gauge distance, but more of, you know, there's any sort of much more obvious, just like jump over the damned, you know, the floor is lava sort of thing. Okay. So let's see, we've got the background mountains. So what is about the background mountains that makes them mountains? There's a very few of them. So there is just one line of mountains in the distance. There's not like a huge mountain range. They don't fade back into smoke or something else. They seem very stark, as if the air between, you know, there and here is very clear. We don't even have like a whole bunch of distance blur over here. It's just bam, there's the sky right behind it. How long have we been working on Dashkin? We have been working since the 1st of January. So going up to our current week, pretty much. That's what it looks like. So you would say we've been working for almost 6 whole months on it. Yeah, but pretty much the reason why we picked that day to start with is because I was working on a different project for myself, and I kind of had a Christmas deadline for one of my first playable for it. And at big milestones like that, I always ask myself, should I actually continue working on this project or whatever? And the answer was, well, maybe not. Maybe I should talk to Adam, and maybe, you know, because one of my big takeaways on my previous project was the art looks like shit, and I can't solve that problem myself without paying money, so it kind of slotted in there with, I should approach Adam and we should talk about it seriously, and then, well, that's how it started. Alright, the air is very clear. The sky is directly behind the mountains. No weird fog stuff. Alright, we have a background line of trees. So let's take a look at these trees real quick. What do they look like? It's basically this grasslands, which has almost no detail, and it kind of slams into this tree line. And there's like some mist along the ground that obscures it, and then it's mountains right behind it with like this weird, it looks like there's a second row of trees. So there's 2 rows of trees. There is mist coming up from them. And the trees are effectively the horizon. So kind of a clean line, as if there's some river we're running parallel to, you know, very, very far away. Alright, so let's take a look at the terrain. The terrain is very smooth. It's basically like this is This is almost just, you know, this could be an ocean with just some big waves, right? There's a reason they called wagons in the Oregon Trail prairie schooners, because it's like a giant grass sea. And is there any detail that we want to pull out of this? Like, there's a few lines and a few rows of what look like terrain, kind of, it's bumpy. And kind of these waves here. So there's kind of these streaks coming off. Smooth streaks through it. It goes to the horizon with no breaks. It comes into the foreground with no breaks. And I think the big thing here is, like, if we're looking at this grass, like, it doesn't look like grass. Like, all the details washed out, and one of the, probably the most difficult thing for us, like, we have some detail with grass come in only in the foreground, in the medium foreground. Alright, so basically, grass is a solid blob slash streak with no real detail. And the medium foreground terrain, again, there are more small streaks. And we actually get in the medium foreground, we get this, that's something I need to think about right here. We have this line here in the ground where I guess the moon is reflecting off of the grass a little bit. It's lighting. Alright, so we're going to have some special notes. The moon casts a bright light shadow. Alright, there's more small streaks. Grass has minor detail. A single color. And then we've got the foreground. The foreground has clear pieces of grass with washed out detail. Now, are there any overall notes that we should... I guess we should also do character has a hard shadow cast by the moon. I mean, it's almost like we've got a spotlight coming off the moon that's casting this shadow. And it's only casting a shadow. It's not casting light. It's just casting a shadow. So I guess the entire scene is lit, but we need hard shadows on things. Hello, Synchron. Yeah, we're going to try to put this into Unreal. So what else should we take away from this scene? I mean, we have kind of this mist. So if you had any special notes, like, I think the biggest problem that we're going to have is getting the world to have a lot less detail. Like, it's easy to just, like, slap on a giant, you know, terrain here, and then yeah, thanks, Adam. Adam's telling me there's new grass in meshes folder and stuff like that, so maybe there's some more assets. I'll take a look at that. Something about his coloring? He's got green hooves. It's his hooves and his horn. That's what's bothering you. Yeah, it's kind of as if, you know, the whole background was drawn and then Bitey was kind of photoshopped in there. Right? Just a little bit. So let's think. I think one of the biggest problems is going to be we need a lot less detail in this foreground and this grass, but at the same time having a lot of detail. Like you can see we have actual grass detail going into the medium background, but it's not detracting from the scene, right? The thing that steals the show is the sky and the moon with all these like specks that draw your eye kind of up and out, especially with, you know, this line here and these lines of the mountain kind of drawing your eyes out and back into the background. And if the foreground scene gets all sorts of screwed up with too much detail, that's just going to look awful, and we're not going to get the same effect. So special notes, moon casts a bright light shadow on the ground. We'll have character as a hard shadow cast by the moon. There's also, if we had any detail in the foreground, it would completely capture your attention. Like if there was a big monolith here, or there was some rock outcropping, immediately you'd be like, "Whoa, that's something," you know, you could run towards. Right, we need a massive lack of detail in the ground while still making it look good. Look in place. You recognize that character. Hello, Cold Zero. Yeah, it's Mario, right? We'll slap a little Mario hat on him. It's me, Mario. Yeah. Except he can't talk. Now there's some things in this scene that we're going to have to experiment with as well. Like, Bitey's not on the ground here. He's, like, obviously dashing above the ground. And in the game right now, he doesn't move like that. You know, he's not, like, doing these bounding cheetah strides or something like that. If he was moving this fast, he would be a big streaky blob. And if we were going to have this sort of galloping gait, we'd have to do a lot of little things. Oh, you're actually wondering who this is. Alright. Yeah, this is Bitey. So I'm working on this game, Dashkin. And this is Bitey of Brackenwood, you may remember from the Bitey of Brackenwood animations. The artist behind him is rather old, ain't he? Oh man, you're killing him. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I think was like 2006 or older. I mean, or more recently. So it's not like super old, but then again, that is a decade ago. So, like, I guess for instance, you know, where was I in 2006 or kind of 2004? I was in high school or whatever. So, you know, I remember I grew up and saw the animations for this and was like, oh man, that looks so cool. Back in the golden days of Flash and the internet. Before Facebook and MySpace. He's pretty old. Yeah, he's a geriatric now, right? He's got to remember to take his brain meds, but he doesn't take them. because he needs them, so he forgets them. Alright, so we're going to start trying to do all the little things here. So we're going to start, we've got our empty void level. This is our level right now. This is, Bitey is in the middle of the nothing. Man, he's moving super quick with that crawl. Let me see. I know Adam uses an Xbox controller. So let me see if there's. Yeah, he's just a little fast. I wonder if it's the level settings that Adam was using that was making it look a little bit too fast. Oh man, you're 46. That's like ancient. You can get a senior citizens discount. You know, Cold Zero, he is in chat right now. You might want to go a little easy on him, or go like even harder. All right, so what we need to do is, why don't we start with, I think I had the most success in the previous one, starting off with kind of the foreground and then working backwards from there. So I don't think there's, how would we get this kind of sloping terrain, right? I mean, we can't just throw a plane into the level, right? Like, there we go. There's our grassland, right? We'll just copy paste a few of these guys around and then that'll be fine, right? No, that's not going to be fine whatsoever. So I guess we probably, like, this looks like a good section for some kind of height map sort of thing, but I'm worried about going way into the distance. What kind of geometry we actually want. So why don't we try the landscape stuff, and we'll see how that works. So Unreal's got this landscape stuff. It's basically a big height map. You love the landscape tool. Well, I hate it and I hate you. Alright, so let's see. These are... Let's just make sure before we click on all the stuff that we need. Sometimes, I don't know, my junior and senior year projects in college, we used height maps a lot for terrain, and they're really good for a lot of... You don't need to apologize, Colt. If you're streaming on Twitch, you got thicker skin than anything. The issue, I think, is that the height map stuff, you know, the landscape, might have a little bit too much freedom in it. Like, my concern would be is it would be difficult to replicate the detail in the next segment. So, like, you know, this is a game where you'd have a lot of information, like a big level track. You've got to, you know, weld the height map to the next height map properly. Artists on Newgrounds, that was like 70s. Jesus. That would be impressive to have somebody doing digital art who is... real old. Most people that old do not have computers or know how to use them. And the other thing I don't really want is I don't want so much detail going into the background. Like, I want detail up front, but then I don't want detail in the back. Like, I don't need all this resolution back here in this height map. It would be nice if we had like kind of an exponentially decaying resolution on our height map. You know, as if the height map itself got stretched unevenly. Like, if this was 1 and then the back was like, 4, so the back would kind of go really, really wide. So we have these different quads, and then we can 2x2 sections, number of components. It's just, so that's kind of our depth. Overall resolution. Alright. Yeah, that's kind of the thing that I'm worried about is if we've got these long hills right here, that's a long hill. Alright, well, since I'm unsure of how to start, blank canvas and all, let's start with something that I know how I'm going to do it. Let's grab those mountains. Interesting. Well, that's one of the things with this scene, right? We don't want the intense terrain details. We're going to want less. We're going to want more detailed foreground, but this washed out background. So I'm gonna have to be. It's no longer avoiding here. It's true. So one of the things that we're having a little bit more of a problem here is if we look at the horizon line here, the horizon line is like, you know, so we've got like this. So put Bitey in the same spot. Like you can see on our game picture that our mountains are just in the frickin' sky right here, right? So what we'd have to do is we'd have to drop these things down. Sinacron, the waterfall scene is done for, quote unquote done for now. Kind of the idea is to get to a point there. There's enough exploration for the waterfall scene to be like, okay, we need like better waterfall assets for stuff. The 3D objects work real well. That was cool. We're going to need like really good water shaders, and we're going to have to figure that out. But it's kind of a first pass, and once we kind of get all these mini scenes kind of put together, we might be able to start figuring out our post-processing effects and kind of then iterate from there. Alright, so they need to be up higher. So that's about right there. So let's compare. Up and down is Z, so we're at 0, and these guys are at negative 5,000. Like negative 8,000. So literally, like, we have a massive downward slope to be able to achieve this effect. This is actually going, this is all massively downhill. Let's actually draw it as a triangle real quick and see just how massive of a downhill this is. See if it's anywhere near. So our Z is like negative 5,000 and our depth is this is our depth and this is our height. So if we put those in meters, those mountains are 1.5 kilometers away, and the height is 54 meters. That's how far of a drop. So it's not a huge drop. What level obstacles will it be? There'll be quite a few. Alright, so I think that's a decent horizon. So let's see what we would need to make for our landscape to kind of fit into this horizon then. I don't think we need massive resolution. So I'm actually going to try... I'm going to try to just mess with stuff to begin with here. Though I guess I should also remember that we don't actually need to go all the way out there. We only need to go to the tree line. And the trees, so we should do the tree line first. So let's get those trees going. Alright, trees. What should we grab for trees? Those are just so massive. Do you have anything that's not 2 million frickin' by 2 million by 2 million in terms of resolution? $4096, $4096. And these things are just too high res for what we need at all. This one might work pretty decently. It's not too gigantic, and it's not already blue. It just looks too close. You know, we're not getting that effective big distance. Yeah, it's looking more like what I want. If you feel like it, but some of this is about taking crappy assets and putting them into, being able to put them into a scene that, in a way that makes them look good, right? And if you can take just stuff that's not supposed to be there and make it look like it fits, then when you actually go through and make assets that look good, it's just going to look fucking amazing, right? So there's a bit of an exercise with see what you can do with stuff that just should not be there, you know? Yeah, that's definitely what we need. So the other thing is we do need a farther background image as well. We need 2 layers. Alright, fuck it, good enough for me. Let's get them in there. So and this is what we did last time with these assets. We take stuff that actually looks just awful, and then like you just keep messing with it, and you can do quite a bit, even though you're just kind of it's just a process of messing with crap. Yeah, okay, the Z fighting on the initial object was just really bad, so we're pretty screwed with these plants. Yeah, all those Z fighting things are toast. Alright. I'm sending you a shitty forest. That sounds really shitty. That sounds like stuff. Alright, so that should get down. Alright, cool. It doesn't appear to be two layers. So let's see what we can do to fix that.